All right. Well, once again, family, welcome back. And again, if I haven't greeted you before, I want to say Shabbat and Kadash Shalom to you. And it is wonderful to see you all and to be here. And so, what we are going to do now is we want to pick up in our study of the book of Romans. And just keep in mind that as we study the book of Romans, we are continuing to ask the question that we started asking months ago. Is Shaul guilty as charged? Right? Is Shaul guilty as charged? Shaul have been accused of many things. Among them, one of them being what do you call it? Some people call him a he say he was a male chauvinist. I hope I said that right. Um, he had a problem with women. Some people feel. Um, some people also teach that Shaul teaches that yes, that he is a fake, certainly a coot. Some people also teaches that Shaul teaches that women should always be silent. Um, woman basically must be seen, not heard. Yes, they teach that there are two Shahuls, right? Um, Paulo Sergius and the Apostle Shahul, who didn't write much, but Paulo Sergius did the majority of the writings, and the Christians stuck it in there. Nonsense. It is absolute nonsense. Um, also, um, uh, boy, there's so much. Anyway, the one that we want to look at today is yes, it's somebody, and to my knowledge, it's really one person that I've ever heard come up with that hypothesis by using basically one verse, maybe two, give him that, maybe two verses to build a house of cards. You see, that can't stand up to a little bit of wind blowing. Um, but that's what people do when you want to be famous. You see, you try to be outrageous, and you don't realize that in trying to be outrageous, number one, not only is it dangerous, but you, for the person who knows, you easily become a laughing stock. Laughing stock. You see. Um, now, um, so what we want to look at today is women, the role of women in the scriptures. Because family, is it just me, or do you get the sense that there is much confusion on this subject among us? We coming out of the church and we trying to please Yahuwah. I'm talking about my sisters, my elders, mothers in Yashar'Al. You're coming out of the church and you want to do all you can to please Yahuwah. That's a little bit loud, babe. You want to do all you can to please Yahuwah. You could turn just a little bit. You don't have to turn all the way down. You want to do all you can to please Yahuwah. And somebody comes along and tell you, you must be very, very quiet. You should be seen but never heard. Because if you are heard and seen, you are a Jezebel. And of course, my sister don't want to be a Jezebel. And she said, well, I want to please Yahuwah, and I certainly don't want to look like a Jezebel in the eyes of my brothers and sisters. So therefore, I must keep quiet. A woman has no place in the work of Yahuwah, is what our our sisters are made to feel like. A woman has no place in the work of Yahuwah. But is this true? Shabbat shalom to you, Aki Daniel. Um, is it true? So we want to uh, uh, we want to now that brings up another point there, and we're going to cover this thing from all sides, because you see, um men and women, men and women, and especially women, from a scriptural perspective, I'm speaking now, men and women must know when speaking is too much, when it becomes too much. Okay. um uh and especially for the woman. Listen, not no one. We don't just get up and speak because we can speak. You see, we must be. We have to use wisdom. You see, um, and that goes for everybody. Now, the situation that Shaul was dealing with, he was dealing with a bunch of unruly women, and women. Yes, no, and it's one thing if somebody is really if somebody is really chattering, that's one thing. But some people tell you not to chatter, and you're really not chattering. You're just trying to have a conversation, as you should be allowed to. You see, but they call it chatter. You see. Now, I've seen situations with women that just don't know when to stop talking. I certainly have. Okay, and that's not good. You see. Okay, so there must be a balance, there must be wisdom, and we must use wisdom. Okay, most of all, of course, the only way we can use wisdom if we're being guided by Yahuwah. So the subject matter that I'm getting ready to go into, this is not the church that give license to women to just do whatever they want to do. Nope, that's not it, because the scriptures certainly don't teach that. Okay? The scriptures do not teach that. The scriptures do not teach a woman to go open up an assembly and do her own thing. Nope. That is dysfunction. That is disorder. That is unscriptural. The woman must be covered. She must be under a covering. Okay? And it's not for her to go open up an assembly somewhere saying, Yahuwah called me to lead an assembly. Well, we're going to look at how a woman is to lead and teach, because the scriptures gives us examples of it, very very real and plain examples of it. So we're going to be looking at that. But again, I want to caution, what we're seeking is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'm not seeking to give license to anything. I'm just seeking to highlight the truth, and that we may walk in it. Okay. Because what we need is the truth. That's all we need. That's really all we need. um, all right. Now, here's we want to start off with a quiz here today, family. We want to start off with a quiz. If I had the capabilities right now to play the Jeopardy theme, I would. But I don't. So let me start off with a little quiz here. Could someone name for me, let's say, I'll go with three. Three prophetesses, three women that are given the titles of prophetesses. I'm not talking about false prophetesses, but three prophetesses in the scriptures. Thank you, Akut. That's two. We have two on the board: Deborah and Mariam. Deborah and Mariam. Can somebody name for me another? We have two on the board. I could ask for five, but let's go with three. Anna, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Anna, Deborah, Mariam, okay. Kim, my wife is losing it. Ah, okay, so we have them, right? We do. So we have Deborah, Mariam, and Anna. That's three. That's what I asked for. Good, very good, family. Very good. Now, so what did I say their titles were again? Well, these women, what are their titles again? Prophetess. Yes, prophetess. Now the actual title in Abari would be, let me write it here. The actual title in Abari would be Nabi'ah. Nabi'ah. Okay. The actual title in Abari would be Nabi'ah. Nabi'ah. Prophetess. Okay. So we just named three prophetesses, three Nabiim in Abari from the scriptures, right? We just named three prophetesses. Those would be Deborah, Mariam, and Anna. They're prophetesses according to the scriptures, and there are more. Okay, Yashar'Al actually had quite a few prophetesses. Some of them, like the men, because they want to hold on to power, they began to go contrary to the word of Yahuwah, and we will hopefully have an opportunity to look at that today. But as prophetesses, family, I ask another question. As prophetesses, what were their roles in Yashar'Al and in the assembly? As prophetesses, what were their roles in Yashar'Al and in the assembly? Just if you could just put a few things out there, or anything that you can recall that comes to mind. As prophetesses, as Nabi'ah, what were their roles in Yasharal and in the assembly, in the Hekal in particular? What were their roles? Don't have to be anything too deep. Don't think about it too hard. Um, but from what you can recall concerning them, what would you say their role was? Absolutely, Akut. Well, Hulda was certainly one. Um, Hannah, uh, she did prophesy based on the word that Yahuwah put in her, but she was not expressly called a prophetess in the scriptures. Yes, so, okay, thank you, Aki, serving. Yes, so Hulda was a great prophetess. Hulda, a great prophetess. Okay. Um, uh, I mean, uh, based on the doctrines of men today, um, Hulda would have been stoned by these men. Many of these men are running around here talking about a woman should be quiet. Because what Hulda did was certainly out of they would never stand for that. But yet, Hulda was only speaking as Yahuwah caused her to speak, and she spoke forcefully to power. The people who are supposed to be leading the people. Yeah, she spoke to them without fear. She told them what Yahuwah had to say concerning them without apology. You see. But no, but women aren't supposed to do that. Women aren't supposed to speak that way. Women aren't supposed to speak like that to men, and certainly are not supposed to speak up in the assembly. Really? Okay, did Shaul ever teach that? Because that's who they use to say this. Did Shaul ever teach that? Well, I will tell you that Shaul never taught that. But you say, oh, wait. No, you're wrong, brother. You're wrong. How about Timothy? How about Peter? His letters to Timothy and Peter. He certainly did teach that. No, he didn't teach that. Because as we study the writings of Shaul, what we learn is that he had to be speaking to specific situations. Because he goes and he says he actually encouraged the work of women in the assembly. You see? He encouraged the work of women in the assembly. So he had to be speaking to specific situations. A bunch of unruly women. Women who did not know when to stop talking. You see? Um, so that's what he was speaking to. All right. So we're going to go to the book of Romans, and then we're going to look at some of these other prophetesses mentioned in the scriptures and see what they did, how they did it, you see. So let's begin in Romans chapter 16. I'm going to go ahead and uh, let me just say this. I want to make this clear. I want to make this clear, and I'm sure if I put this video on YouTube, somebody will come along. And again, you see, I've been called a whole lot of things. Um, I've been called a Christian. I've been called anti-Torah. I've been called a whole lot of stuff. And this one is going to get me called some more stuff by some more people. But I will say this to those men out there who think they're something, running around teaching this falsehood about a woman is to be seen and not heard. I will say to you, my friend, that you are not teaching according to Scripture. Okay? Of course, there's a time for everything. There's a place for everything. But nowhere in the Scriptures does it say that a woman should be seen and not heard, which is basically what a lot of these men out here are teaching. Okay, so we're going to look at the scriptures concerning this. But let's begin in Romans chapter 16, because after all, Shaul is supposed to be the one that gave them the authority to say this. Okay, yes, certainly Akut. All right, Shaul is supposed to be the one. So let's begin with Shaul. We are now in the final chapter of the book of Romans. Romans chapter 16. We have covered the entire book of Romans, family. I know that everybody haven't been here every time that for each chapter, but we have covered every chapter in the book of Romans, and we have completed the book of Romans. And if anybody here, if there's anyone here after us going through it contextually, because that's what we did. We took the time to go through the book and analyze it according to context. And I'd just like to ask, to this point, did we come across the contradictions suggested so far? Because you see, the book of Romans, there are a lot of people that point to the book of Romans when they try to make a case against Shaul. And we have taken the time to look at the writings contextually. Have we found these contradictions so far from our study? And you know, it's unfortunate that I've lost some of those recordings. Because I was hoping to put them all up on YouTube, but I've lost some of them because of computer problems. But anybody recall us going through and those so-called contradictions or whatever it is that you see where they still stand and is still valid after we have taken a contextual look at the writings to this point? Well, to the Aki, I certainly have found none. When we take a contextual look, of course, if we take something out of context and we only consider one verse, or string a couple verses together, then certainly we can think that it's out of that it says something that it doesn't. But what's important is for us to put it in context. Okay. Uh, uh, so we certainly have not to this point. Now we're going to chapter 16, which is the final chapter, and we're looking forward to getting to the book of Galatians, which is another really interesting and exciting and necessary book for us to look at contextually, because a lot of false teachings are out there based on people not taking the time to study the book according to context, but rather making hasty conclusions on something they have not examined. All right, so Romans chapter 16, beginning at verse 1. And I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the assembly in Kenria. All right. Now she is, Phoebe is a Yahudi. She is a Yahudi woman. Phoebe is a Yahudi woman. She's a woman of Yashar'Al. But why does she have the name Phoebe? Let's talk history. Why does she have the name Phoebe? Family, she is a woman of Yashar'Al, right? Why does she have the name Phoebe? Living in a different country, absolutely. She was born in captivity, living in captivity, just like the people of Yashar'Al being scattered and being born into this captivity and so many other captivities, being born into an English society. A lot of us have English names. Our people, they lived in the Isles of Greece. They lived with the Greeks, were born in the land of the Grecians, and so they had Greek names. As a matter of fact, they even spoke the Greek language. And so when Shaul and the other taught ones set out to bring the message to them, they couldn't the message could not remain in the Abari text. They had to translate it into the Greek text for them. So a lot of people make the mistake when you hear about the Greek writings of scripture, people think that this was done by the Europeans. No. The Greek translations was done by people of Yashar'Al who translated the Abari writing into the Greek language, so that the Abari people living in the Greek culture, who were born in captivity, living in Greece, speaking the language of Greece, could understand what was being stated, the message that was preserved for them. Now I will tell you that one thing that never happened, Yahusha never became Jesus in Greek. That is a Christian fabrication. But even while the scriptures were translated into Greek, Yahusha never became Jesus. You see? That's something the Christians did. So the reason why she has the name Phoebe, she is a woman of Yashar'Al, born in captivity, living in Greece. And so she has a Greek name. But Shaul is writing now, and he says, and I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the assembly in Kenria. Now, I want to stay there for one more second, family, because you see, people teach, and the church teaches, that these people that Shaul is speaking about here are Caucasian Europeans. That's not true. They point to their names and they say that these are the Gentiles. No, my friend. Yes, the people being spoken of are the Gentiles, but the Gentiles were not Caucasian. The Gentiles were people of Yashar'Al, and we have covered that. And I know that I've been on this quite a bit, but you see, the lies are so deep that at every turn I have to take the opportunity to point out the whether it is in some cases simple mistake, or in other cases willful delusion. I have to take the opportunity to point it out. So this woman Phoebe was a Gentile. What does Gentile mean? Mean that she was of the 10 tribes of Yashar'Al, scattered. She was of the scattered the house of Ephraim, called Gentile. She was a Gentile. She has a Greek name, but she was a woman of, today they say, a black woman, because the people of Yashar'Al were a black people. Now, of course, not making this about skin color, because we can be black and jacked just as much as we can be white and jacked, we can be black and jacked. But there are certain facts that prevail concerning the people of the book, and that is the fact that they are a Negroid people. If Hitler knew it, then certainly the whole world should know it. Okay? And I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the assembly in Canrea. So Phoebe was attending an assembly. The people were waking up and they were assembling in the Isles of Greece. And Phoebe was one who was working in that assembly. She was working in the house of Yahuwah, family. Oh, wait. Oh, she was just washing the dishes. Yeah. She was just scrubbing the floors. That's what she was doing. Really? Does it say that? Yes, certainly. That would be one of the things that she would have been doing. She's a servant, all of us. If we had the ability, if we were able to build a house onto Yahuwah, I certainly would be scrubbing the bathroom. I would be scrubbing the floors. And any one of us, I'm sure, would do that. That's working in the house of Yahuwah. But her work was not limited to scrubbing the bathroom. Okay, but that's the idea that some men would like to put into the minds of people, or to have women feeling as if that's all you're good for. Scrub the toilet and shut up. Yahuwah have no other use for you. These men do not speak according to scripture. You see, absolutely acute. She would not be mentioned if all she did was scrub the toilet. She would not be mentioned if all she did was scrub the floor. She played a prominent role in the assembly in Canrea. Okay? Now this, keep in mind here, family, that this is Shaul speaking. Now this is the first of several women that he is going to mention. Okay? This is the first of several women that he's going to mention. This is Shaul speaking. Okay? This is Shaul speaking. Let's keep that in mind. This is Shaul speaking. This is the woman abuser. This is the uh, male chauvinist. This is Shaul speaking. Keep that in mind, family. Let's keep that in mind. Okay? All right. So he says, and I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the assembly in Cambria, that you receive her in Yahuwah, worthy of the set apart ones, and assist her in whatever matter she has need of you. For she has been a great help to many, including me. Wait, is he saying that she has certainly washed a lot of my clothes, so assist her in whatever she need? Listen, he says, and I commend to you Phoebe, our sister, who is a servant of the assembly in Kenria, that you receive her in Yahuwah, worthy of the set apart ones. Worthy of the set apart ones. Listen, if all she did was wash clothes really well, that wouldn't make her worthy of the set apart ones. Worthy to be called set apart. You washing my clothes real good don't make you set apart. So that's out. And assist her in whatever matter she has need of. This is a woman that was prominent in the work of Yahuwah. And so he says, assist her in whatever matter she has need of. For she has been a great help to many, including me. Now he goes on to say, greet Priscilla and Aquilas. Who is Priscilla and Aquilas? My fellow workers in Mashiach, Yahusha. Priscilla and Aquilas are two people of Yashar'Al, born in Greek captivity, a husband and a wife. Okay? That's who Priscilla and Aquilas was. Two people of Yashar'Al, born in Greek captivity, who have accepted Mashiach. Important? Accepted Mashiach. Notice, Shaul is going to labor the point of Mashiach in this chapter, as he has already. He's going to labor the point of Mashiach. You know why he's doing this? Because there were many false teachers, just as there are today, that were teaching that there is no Mashiach. and that one do not need to come through the door. You can take the window instead. When the scriptures tells us that the only way that you can be accepted is if you come through the door. Who is the door? The door is Mashiach. You cannot deny Mashiach and be accepted in the house. So he says, greet Priscilla and Aquilas, my fellow workers in Yahusha HaMashiach, who risked their own necks for my life, to whom not only I give thanks, but also all the assemblies of the Gentiles. They risked their own necks for his life because they would give him a safe place. When people were trying to kill him, they would see about his security. They would take him into their place. They risked their own lives. Okay, so this was a couple, a husband and wife of Yashar'Al, that had an assembly in their house. Okay, now um, uh, let's go on and see what else he says. Who risked their own necks for my life, to whom not only I give thanks, but also all the assemblies of the Gentiles. So all the assemblies of the Gentiles. The people of Yashar'Al were waking up, and they had assemblies spread about in the Isles of Greece. And they welcomed Shaul. They received him. Because while the house of Yehuda, which Shaul was of the house of Yehuda, but while the house of Yehuda was trying to hold on to power and teaching falsehood, and trying to look down on the Gentiles, the scattered house, the house of Ephraim, and treat them as if they were second-class citizens, Shaul was welcoming of them. Shaul brought the message to them, the message that Yahusha commanded to be brought to the Gentiles when he says, I am come not but to the lost sheep, to the scattered sheep of the house of Yashar'Al. That's who I came for. I did not come to my own. He said, I know that when I come, my own was not going to receive me. I came to my own. I came to the house of Yehuda, but my own did not receive me. But they had to reject me so that the wild olive branch would be grafted back in. The house of Ephraim. He said, I come not but to the scattered sheep of the house of Yashar'Al. I came for the Gentiles. I came to bring them back into contract with myself. Because they have been divorced. They have been put away from me. But I came to bring them back. So he goes on to say in verse 5, and the assembly that is in their house. So they had an assembly in their house. They did not have a church in their house. The people of Yashar'Al did not do church. They did not have a church in their house. And family, I don't have a lot of time now because I have a lot to cover. So I don't have a lot of time to go into church and talk about what church is. But believe me, you can, if you're not familiar, and I'm sure everybody else here in the room knows, but if you're watching this video and you don't know why they wouldn't have church, then you need to look up the origin of the word church. Okay, look up church, look up kirk, go to the dictionary and type in church, C-H-U-R-C-H, look up the origin of the word and go to every place that it leads you. It leads you to kirk, it leads you to Sirs, it leads you to Kuriakan, it leads you to all of this. Look it up, search it out, and you will find out what church really is. Church has nothing to do with scripture. Church is the name of a pagan deity. Church has nothing to do with scripture. Okay? Yahuwah tells us in the book of Revelation chapter 18, say, come out of her. Come out of her, the harlot. The mother of harlots. And the mother and her children, her daughters. Come out of her. Okay? So, they didn't have a church in their house. They had a congregation of people. They had an assembly of Yashar'Al, people who came together and assembled in esteem to Yahuwah to learn and grow together. Okay? So he said, greet them in the assembly in their house. Greet my beloved Epenetos, who is the first fruits of Achaia to Mashiach. So Epaphras was the first one to accept Mashiach, to receive Mashiach, to believe upon Mashiach in Achaia. He was the first one to believe. The first of the scattered ones living in Achaia, he was the first one to say, I'm going to follow Mashiach. I no longer believe that I can save myself, but I must come through the door. That's what it's all about, family. You see, there were two lies being spreaded, just like it is today. You have a set of people today that are teaching that you must save yourself. Wrong, false, not true according to scripture. We, we, family, and the word save, the title, I've got to talk about that for a second. Save yourself. You see, the whole saved thing is a Christian idea that jack us up, mess up our understanding of the scripture. So when they're saying, talking about saving yourself, they're talking about setting yourself apart unto Yahuwah. But we do not set ourselves apart unto Yahuwah. Listen, family, it's not our works that got us chosen by Yahuwah. Listen, is it our works? Can anybody here say that your works got you elected by Yahuwah? Is there anyone in the room that could say that their works got them elected? No, certainly not. I can't say my works got me elected by Yahuwah. I can't say that I was keeping the feast of Yahuwah so perfectly and he decided to save me. No, I could not keep anything perfectly enough to be saved by Yahuwah. But yet that is what these people are teaching. Oh, you must keep Torah perfectly in your captivity so that you can be saved. That's the doctrine of saving yourself. Hold up. Just in case you think that I'm making this up, let's go to the scriptures and see what it says will bring us deliverance. Let's see what the scripture says will bring us deliverance. Let's jump over here for a second, because you see, this is the gripe that a whole lot of people have with Shaul, because Shaul said you can't save yourself. Oh, and the know-it-alls today say Shaul was wrong. They take the scriptures and twist it all kinds of way like scrap metal to tell people that you can save yourself. You see? But let's go to the scriptures and see what the scripture says concerning our deliverance. Let's go. Is it that we must keep Torah perfectly in the place of our captivity so that then we will be saved? So in other words, we're saving ourselves. Is that it? Does the scriptures teach us that? Shaul certainly teach against that. But you see, these self-righteous folks have a problem with that. Let's go to the end of the book of Hosea. We started in the book of Hosea. At the beginning of this study, I told you that to understand the book of Romans, you must take into account the book of Hosea, the book of Amos, and all of those books of captivity. You must take them into account if you're going to understand the book of Romans. Let's go to the book of Hosea, not Hosea. Let's go to the book of Hosea, final chapter in the book of Hosea, to see what brings us deliverance. Is it that we will save ourselves that bring us deliverance? What bring us deliverance? Is it that our works, our keeping Torah perfectly, that's going to bring us deliverance? I'll tell you that none of us can do it in our captivity. Believe me. And I didn't make that up. The scripture tell us that. Okay, but let's go to the book of Hosea here real quick, chapter 14, for the people who teach that we must save ourselves. Let's see what Yahuwah have to say concerning that. Okay, let's see if Shaul is the false teacher, or these false teachers are in fact the false teachers. The book of Hosea, chapter 14. Bear with me here while I get to it. I have a mic unmuted. I'll have to try to get to it there in a second, or if someone knows. Let's go to chapter 14 of the Todah family. Chapter 14 of the book of Hosea. Chapter 14 of the book of Hosea. Can we save ourselves? Is that what will get us delivered out of our captivity? Us doing something to win Yahuwah's favor. Is that what scripture says? Now, there are many places in scriptures that we can go to. This is just one of them that I will go to. book of Hosea chapter 14, because you see, the book of Hosea is about the scattering and the regathering. Okay, the book of Hosea is about the scattering and the regathering, and that's the same thing that Shaul was dealing with in his day, scattering and regathering. Now we're dealing with it again in our day because of the crookedness, because of our crookedness, because of how corrupt we as a people are. How forgetful we are. 1 minute we're doing well, and as soon as things start going good, we turn against Yahuwah. That's our history, you see. That's our history. That's why I call us stiff-necked Yashar'Al. That's why I call us backsliding Yashar'Al. That's why I call us all those things. So in the book of Hosea chapter 14, verse 1, O Yashar'Al, return to Yahuwah your Elohim, for you have stumbled by your crookedness. Take words with you and return to Yahuwah. Say to him, take away all crookedness and accept what is good, and we render the bulls of our lips. We render the sacrifices of our lips. Ashur does not save us. We do not ride on horses, nor eat, nor ever again do we say to the work of our hands, our mighty ones, for the fatherless finds compassion in you. I shall heal their backsliding. So this is what's going to get us delivered. Yahuwah says, I shall heal their backsliding. I shall love them spontaneously. You see that word, family? Spontaneously. Of course, it's a translation. But I shall love them spontaneously. What does that mean? What does it mean? Spontaneously. Yahuwah says, I shall love them spontaneously. What does that tell us? I shall love them spontaneously. What does that tell us? Easily, not quite the word I'm looking for. Freely, instantly, without, spontaneously, meaning without prerequisite. In other words, I'm going to turn my face back to them even when they don't deserve for me to be looking at them. In the midst of their stink, I'm going to turn my nostril towards them. I'm going to stop my breath and I'm going to clean them up and accept them. Yes, it speaks of his mercy. You see, I'm going to turn my face back to them. Is this the only place there it says that? No, it's not the only place where it says this. It says it all over the scriptures. You see, that is the reason why, family, we were in church calling on Jesus. And Yahuwah turned his face to us and said, my son, my daughter, that is not him. That's not me. Turn away from that idolatry. It's not that you were praising him well and good in church and according to truth when he began to open our eyes. No, we were in the midst of our mess. We were in the cesspool. And he turned his face to us. Somehow, though, people are out there teaching that we must first get it right and then Yahuwah will see us and act. No, no. Yahuwah turned his face to us in our mess and then put in us his set apart spirit that cleans us up. That's the work of Zadok. That's the work of Zadok. The proper name of the Ruach, Yahuwah Zadokanu. The attribute of Yahuwah that sets us apart unto him. You see. So he says, going back to what he has to say here in the book of Hosea, I shall heal their backsliding. I shall heal their backsliding. I shall love them spontaneously, for my displeasure has turned away from him. I shall be like the dew to Yashar'Al. He shall blossom like the lily, and cast out his roots like Lebanon. His branches shall spread, and his splendor shall be like an olive tree, and his fragrance like Lebanon. Those who dwell under his shadow shall return. They shall revive like grain, and blossom like the vine, and become as fragrant as the wine of Lebanon. What more has Ephraim do with idol? What more has Ephraim to do with idols? It is I who answer and look after him. I am like a green cypress tree. Your fruit comes from me. Who is wise and understands these words, discerning and knows them? For the ways of Yahuwah are straight, and the set apart walk in him, but the transgressors stumble in them. Hallelujah. Family, this is not the only place, but we can go to many scriptures if we had time that would show us that Yahuwah will turn his face to us in our stink, and he will clean us up and bring us back to himself. As he turns his face to us, he empowers us to live according to his word and his way. You see. Now, we go back now to the book of Romans. To the book of Romans. So Shaul says, Romans chapter 16, verse 6, greet Miriam, who worked very hard for us. Greet Miriam, who worked very hard for us. Greet Andronicus and Junius, my relatives. Oh, you see, family. Who is Andronicus and Junius? Who is Andronicus and Junius here, family? Andronicus and Junius. They are the relatives of Shaul, right? Now, according to the scripture, Shaul was a black man of the tribe of Banyaman. Andronicus and Junius have Greek names. Now, Christianity have taught us that Andronicus and Junius were white, and so was Shaul. Well, the scriptures doesn't teach that. Just something for us to know and take note of. Okay? What we're doing is we're exposing the lies and the myths, right? So these were his relatives, and they were living in the Greek Isles. They had Greek names. They didn't have they didn't have Abari names. They had Greek names because they were born in the captivity, named in the captivity. Okay? Relatives, my relatives and my fellow prisoners who are eminent among the emissaries are servants who also were in Mashiach before me. Notice again, Shaul emphasizes a whole lot Mashiach. That's why people who are anti-Mashiach is also anti-Shaul. And who is Shaul to be anti? Shaul is just a servant of Yahuwah. Okay, so you're really not anti-Shaul, you're anti-Yahuwah. Greet Amplias, my beloved in Yahuwah. Greet Urbanus, our fellow worker in Mashiach, and Stachus, my beloved. Greet Apelles, the approved in Mashiach. Greet those who are of Aristobulus. Greet Tryphania and Tryphosa, who work in Yahuwah. Tryphena, I am not very certain, but sounds like it would be female. Okay? A woman. Greet Tryphena and Tryphosa, who work in Yahuwah. A couple. Okay? Greet the beloved Persis, who worked very hard in Yahuwah. Greet Rufus, chosen in Yahuwah, and his mother and mine. Mother and mine. Greet his mother and mine. He consider his mom to be his mom. Greet Asergritos, Phlegon, Hermas, Patrobas, Hermes, and the brothers who are with them. Okay? Greet Philologos and Julia, a woman, Nereus and his sister, and Olympas, and all the set apart ones who are with them. Greet one another with a set apart kiss. The assemblies of Mashiach greet you. Now I call upon you, brothers. Watch out for those who cause divisions and stumbling, contrary to the teaching which you learned, and turn away from them. For such ones do not serve our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach, but their own stomach, And by smooth words and flattering speech, they deceive the hearts of the innocent. Watch out for them. You have some that are gifted with the lip. With their smooth words and flattering speech, this translation say innocent. I like the translation that says simple. For such ones do not serve our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach. They're anti-Mashiach, but their own stomach, they serve their own stomach, and by smooth words and flattering speech, they deceive the hearts of the simple. Your obedience indeed is reported to all. Therefore I rejoice concerning you, but I wish you to be wise indeed as to the good, and simple toward the evil. And the Alhim of Shalom shall crush Shatan under your feet shortly. You know, family, let me say this. You know that in the scriptures when you see Shatan, and I've got to pull that text for you at some point. Shatan also refers to literal people. Um, Christianity have conditioned us to think of Shatan only as a spiritual entity, which certainly Shatan is a spiritual entity also, but Shatan also is embodied in human form. You read in what they call the Apocrypha, you will see it stated there plainly. I forget which book in particular talks about in that day there was no Shatan in the land. Is the spiritual being Shatan ever non-existent? No. But what it was talking about was the fact that there was no king, wicked king ruling over Yashar'Al for a time. There he said there was no Shatan in the land. Right now we are being ruled over by Shatan. This governmental system that we are under is Shatan. You see? For such ones do not serve our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach, but their own stomach, and by smooth words and flattering speech they deceive the hearts of the innocent. Your obedience indeed is reported to all, therefore I rejoice concerning you, but I wish you to be wise indeed as to the good, and simple toward the evil. And the Alahim of peace shall crush Shatan under your feet shortly. The favor of our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach be with you. Amen. Timothy, my fellow worker. So family, look, one second. Let me make the point. Let me finish the point that I started to make just now. So tell me now, Shaitan that Shaul speaks of here, because Christianity will condition us to think that is speaking of the spiritual being. Okay? Oh, and if somebody say that you mean this governmental system and even the European system is Shaitan, somebody say, oh, that's a racist comment. Okay, let's see if that's a racist comment or that's truth. Shaul said that Yahuwah was going to crush Shatan shortly. Shortly. Pay attention there now, shortly. It's been long time since. And that generation have died out that he was talking to. But he said that Shatan was going to be crushed shortly. If he was speaking about the spiritual being, tell me something. Is Shatan crushed or is he still active? The spiritual being. Is he crushed or is he still active? Still active, right? So you see, family, Shaitan here was not talking about our spiritual adversary. It was talking about the system that had Yashar'Al in captivity. We see that? We follow, family? It was talking about the system under which Yashar'Al was bound. It was talking about man, Shaitan, man, adversary. That's what Shaitan means, adversary. Anybody can be Shaitan. When Yahusha said to Kapha, get behind me, Shaitan, what was he saying? Get behind me, adversary of the work. Because in that moment, Kapha became an adversary to the will of Yahuwah. Get behind me, adversary. In that moment, Kapha became Shaitan. So we must be careful not to become Shaitan to the work of Yahuwah. You have many men out there who are shaitans to the work of Yahuwah. They go contrary. When one begins to speak contrary to the word of Yahuwah, that one is shaitan. Kapha did not become some spiritual being. Kapha simply became an adversary to the will of Yahuwah, to the word of Yahuwah, to the way of Yahuwah. The word, the title shaitan means adversary. Okay? Anyway, we move on. That's not what our focus is on here today. I just wanted to point that out. Okay? Your obedience, okay, and we're going to get to the women in the scriptures, but let me just finish this chapter. We're going to get to the women in the scriptures and Yahuwah's expectation concerning women. We're going to get to that, but I'm going to finish this chapter because from what you've seen so far, family, I believe it's clear that Shaul has a whole lot of compliments for women and spoke about the great work that they do in the assembly. We've seen that so far. Okay? So verse 21. Timothy, my fellow worker, and Lucius and Jason and Sosipater, my relatives, greet you. I, Tertius, who wrote this letter, greet you in Yahuwah. Okay, so Tertius, Shaul was dictating to Tertius what to write, as he often did. Gaius, the host of all the assembly, and me greets you. Erastus, the treasurer of the city, greets you. And Quartus, a brother. Now, Gaius, when you read in the book of Yahukanan, third Yahukanan, I believe it was Gaius. Gaius eventually is going to begin to go contrary to the way of Yahuwah. Okay, so Gaius started out right, but then he began to fly lean. Okay, we see that in the book of Yahukanan, I believe, the third chapter in Yahukanan. Um, so some people might start out well with you, but will they end well? Will they finish? And it's not about with you or with me. It's about starting out well in Yahuwah's word, but where do they end up? You see, the favor of our sovereign Yahushua HaMashiach be with you all. Amen. And to him who is able to establish you according to my good news and the preaching of Yahushua HaMashiach, according to the revelation of the secret which was kept silent since times of old, but now has been made manifest, and by the prophetic scriptures has been made known to all nations, all the scattered ones, what he's talking about, according to the command of the everlasting Elohim for belief or obedience. To Elohim, wise alone, be the esteemed through Yahushua HaMashiach forever. Amen. So that was Romans chapter 16, the final chapter in the book. And what it has caused us to do is to take another look at the role of women in the assembly. And so, given that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to other scriptures concerning the role of women in the scriptures, the role of women in the assembly. We're going to look at some of the women of Yashar'Al that Yahuwah used greatly and ask the question, what is the role of women? How should women behave in the assembly? You see, and we must as men ask ourselves that question also. But we're focusing on women. Is a woman to be seen but not heard continually? You see, can a woman serve in the assembly? Is there work for a woman in the house of Yahuwah? We're going to let the scriptures answer these questions, but I believe that before we do that, maybe we should go ahead and take our break now. And then when we come back, we will begin by looking at some women in the scriptures and what their role was in Yashar'Al and in the Hekal. Okay, so I think we will at this time prepare for a break, take a break. But before we go to break, I don't know if there are any, if there were any comments or anything, anyone want to share before we take a break. Tuda Akut, I'm gonna go ahead then and stop the recording here. And then if not, if there are no comments, nothing, anyone wants to share, then we'll take a break for half an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll begin to look at women in the scriptures. Look at some specifics. All right, so let me go ahead and stop the recording.